Welcome to the International Journal of Operation and Production Management podcast series, where we explore the latest research, ideas, and trends in the world of operation and production management. Speaking today are your hosts, Andrea and Oznur, as part of the social media team at IJOPM. In each episode, we'll be speaking with experts from academia, industry, and beyond to gain their insights of the most pressing issue facing operation and production management professionals today, as well as best practices to publish your research in one of the leading journals in the field.
In this new episode of the series, we will be focusing on lean practices and its integration with digital technologies. To do that, we will be speaking with Alejandro Frank, Matthias Thurer, and Giuliano Marodin. They guest edited a special issue in International Journal of Operations and Production Management. This special issue has an interesting title, Beyon Industry 4.0, Integrating Lean, Digital Technologies, and People. It will be published in 2024. Also, Moacir Godinho Filho is one of the guest editors of this special issue, who couldn't join us today.
Thank you so much for your time and presence today, Alejandro, Matthias, and Giuliano. So, as an introduction, can you please present yourself to our audience?
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me here. I'm Alejandro Frank. I'm professor at the Federal University of Rio Grande do Sul. This is in southern Brazil. And I'm also the director of the organizational engineering team, which is also part of this same university.
Hi, everyone. Thank you very much for the invitation. I'm the Continental Chair Professor in Operations and Supply Chain at the University of South Carolina. I'm also one of the VPs of the College of Operational Excellence at POMS. I had more than 20 years in experience in consulting and working with industries implementing lean and operational excellence. And I'm very happy to be here talking to you guys about this.
Also, very thanks to having me here at this podcast, which I think is a very good idea. My name is Matthias Thurer. I'm professor at the Technical University Chemnitz and chair of factory planning and intralogistics.
Thank you. So let's dive into the topic of this podcast. First of all, let's talk about the idea behind this special issue. The two macro themes are, of course, lean and digital technologies. So can you first provide to our audience a modern definition of lean in operations and supply chain management? And also, could you please explain why it is so important to connect lean with digital technologies?
So this is a very good question. First, I would like to start giving a little overview about the background of this special issue. We are seeing a growing literature on lean and Industry 4.0. And this literature is quite very optimistic in terms of how to integrate lean and Industry 4.0. There are maybe two main reasons why this literature is very optimistic. One of them is because sometimes it's a very simplistic view of seeing these two concepts, and the other one is because of maybe these two concepts are not well defined. So therefore, I think that it's a good start to define well lean and Industry 4.0. I will give a concept of Industry 4.0, which integrates these digital technologies, and maybe Matthias and Giuliano can speak a little more about lean in a modern view about lean. So from my point of view, Industry 4.0 considers a technology model that companies can implement, which comprises the use of intensive use of several digital technologies, especially Internet of Things, big data, artificial intelligence, and cloud computing, and that are applied in several different industry solutions. So it's more than just using specific technologies, but it's also about considering an industry program to modernize the factory towards more advanced technologies. So, and this concept meets lean because we are considering a technology model that will be integrated with a management model like Lean. So this is my point of view from Industry 4.0, and probably Giuliano and Matthias can speak better than me about Lean.
Yeah, sure. So Lean has been around for many decades now, and I think kind of our understanding about it have also changed and evolved. The industry knows a lot about Lean nowadays as the tools and the techniques. They've been adopting that in many different ways. So it's any company, like any factory that you go now, they have some knowledge of Lean and how to implement that and some of the tools, right? But of course, in academia, we kind of strive for more than that. So in academic sense, Lean is known today as a way to achieve continuous improvement, right? How to solve problems in a company, how to make it more efficient or more flexible or improve quality. They are a whole system of tools and techniques and principles that will help companies to learn quicker and do more improvements faster, right? So that's kind of an overview of the topic. I don't know if Matthias want to add to that or not.
I think Lean is something everybody has a definition of. So I would not two people which actually have exactly the same definition of Lean. Everybody defines a little bit different. Some people say it works. Some people say we have it done. Some people say you will never have it done. I think in general, there are two streams. One takes the soft side to Lean, which is very common, for example, in the Shinko model, etc., where there's a lot about Lean and engagement and the human aspect of Lean, including worker training, etc. And then we also have the hard part of Lean, which is focusing a lot of techniques and process improvements. So there are different sides, and every person focuses on different aspects. In the end, obviously, it always is a question of improving to a certain degree performance. Now, for me personally, Lean is a technique, which means it's also a technology or the knowledge about the technique. And now the big question is simply, how will Lean as a technique and technology transform if suddenly we have different modes of operationalization, including digital technologies to do that?
Thank you so much. So in connection with this, so from a practical perspective, so I was wondering, so if this connection has always been such a relevant managerial problem, or if in your opinion, the integration of Lean with digital technologies has become more complex with the rise of new technology. Alejandro talked about Industry 4.0 and the different technology as part of this framework. So what are the main challenges that companies face nowadays in this area?
The main challenges is I think everybody had challenges with new technologies. So every time I'm opening the computer, or I try to cross the border, or I try to go to the supermarket, new technology is sometimes making my life hell. And sometimes I feel I'm absolutely not capable to order something on my mobile phone because it's just too complex for me. But apparently my daughter is able to do that very easily. So new technologies obviously pose challenges for some and pose less challenges for others. And I think in Lean, it's the same. Lean is a very structured approach, which bases a lot on old school technologies, like using A3 papers to making plans and these kind of things, because it was developed at the time when computers were obviously not so present as they are now. Obviously, these people which still like to use A3 sheets have a problem if suddenly it's everything based on data and new technologies. But at the same time, do these people normally have deeper insight into the actual concepts which underlie the application, whereas other peoples are very good at the technology but don't really understand what is actually happening on the shop floor? I mean, we just need to look at business schools where essentially a lot of operations management PhDs now coming from mathematics or coming from informatics. These people have in their whole life never saw a shop floor. And then obviously they shall analyze and improve a shop floor. But how will you interpret data if you don't have the context from the data or you have no idea about the data? So we have at the moment the challenge that actually the different departments we have at the university should be mixed to a certain degree. So what we need is actually combining the business school with informatics department. And then we need people which are at one time able to understand operational processes and at the same time able to code something. And at the moment, we don't have these people. So the biggest problem at the moment is simply that we put the career prospect and the knowledge development of people in the wrong boxes. So to a certain degree, we don't really get the output of people we would need for the digitalization of work processes.
Yeah, to add to what Matthias just said, I think Lean always had a tension with any kind of technology, right? So the kind of the way to use the technology for continuous improvement or for improving performance, that's what we want. But in some cases, if the technology is not giving us the results that we wanted, then we should kind of focus on the continuous improvement side or not focus on the technology itself. That was also kind of the dynamic, even if ERP systems or other systems, right? If it's sustained the continuous flow, if it's sustained the continuous improvement, if it's sustained the pull production, then and if it's reliable technology, then of course it'll be very aligned with the concepts of Lean. But if a technology is to sustain mass production system, or if it's not reliable, then we'll go against some of these principles of the Lean production system. So it's always a question of, is the technology ready and reliable and doing what we need to do when we need to do? And I think that's a great point now, because we have a lot of new stuff that is being implemented and being used, but we don't know how reliable it is and if it's going to solve exactly that problem that the shop floor have. That's what Matthias was saying. And that's a great example in terms of the paper and Post-its and physical paper and physical things that we do, traditional Lean and Kaizen. There is a reason for that, right? We want to get everybody together. We want to have all a whole team to get ideas and share the ideas. So that's why, brown paper and Post-its are great for that. We need to evaluate, do we have the technology now that can do the same thing without losing the soft skills that we were talking about, right? We don't want to put someone that doesn't know how to do the technology, like Matthias was saying, out of this process. We want to bring this person to also help into the problem solving. So there's always going to be this tension. Is that aligned? Is that what it helping us in implementing the tools and principles that we want to?
Yeah, to add to the prior comments, I think that another point is that, of course, we have always discussed about the integration between Lean and technology, but prior industrial stages or technology stages were focused on mostly on manual tasks. Technologies were oriented to do what workers could do in terms of physical efforts and in terms of manual activities. But now, with the advance, for instance, of artificial intelligence, we are having an impact also on cognitive tasks. And when we talk about Lean, we are talking about empowering people, delegating to the workers many decisions. And when we now face new technologies like artificial intelligence, we start to see a tension, because tools like artificial intelligence are supposed to do many also cognitive activities that workers were doing before. So, and this is, I think, a very important tension that we are facing nowadays with the advance of Industry 4.0 technologies in Lean systems, because then we start to discuss what are the frontiers, the borders between the workers' activities and the new technologies that can do many activities that the workers did before. What means in this new context empowering people? What means delegating to workers? How the decision-making looks like in this new context, and how we can use these advanced digital technologies not to substitute workers, but to support workers in this new context. So I think these are the new challenges that we are facing nowadays when we consider the cognitive aspects that digital technologies can impact.
So thank you. I actually have a follow-up question on what you just discussed. So what's your view regarding the fact that if all the companies face this type of challenging and tension, or based on what you saw in your project and your research, so are these tensions more or less prominent based on some factors such as, I don't know, like size of the company, technological maturity of the company, industry, or any other contextual factors that you have in mind?
Yeah, so I can start that. I think the pressures are going to be different because they are different, starting to talk a little bit about the industry side, right? So the context of lean started in automotive industry just because automotive industry have a high level of need for efficiency, right, and quality level that other industries don't have, right? So you need to do things in a very high quality level and use your workers very, very well, very efficient, and that puts a lot of pressure on people to find better ways to do things, right? And that's why a lot of some of the techniques that we learn, not only lean but others, kind of have this birth or explosion on the automotive industry. And that's how it happened, right? It also disseminated quicker on the automotive industry because you needed to be more efficient. Other industry, like if you think about second tier or third tier or fourth tier, or even industry that are more close related to raw materials that are not in the same level of pressure, of course, they're not going to start spending a lot of money into these unknown world of, like new technologies that are not tested or not very well known yet, right? So I think industry will play a big role there. They're already playing. You can see if you go and visit different tiers there as well, and contextual factors are another important aspect there. Of course, there is a lot of studies on lean and cultural aspects, and we know that it started in Japan, so have some related to those cultural aspects in Japan and in South Korea as well, that make it easy to implement in some of those plants, and have some difficulties when you move context to Europe or to the United States. So I think there's still the same kind of cultural barriers happening there in terms of countries as well.
Yeah, another factor is the size of the companies. That it can vary. We can find differences in terms of the forms of integration between lean and digital technologies, depending on the size of the companies. Not just because of the size, but because depending on the size of the company or of the factory, we'll have different ways in which the workers execute their tasks. For instance, small companies, they are more unstructured. The work is not so standardized. They have many variations in the shop floor, while big companies tend to have a more standardized process and standardized routines. So this is just this difference has a big impact on the way we use technologies. What we have seen is that in unstructured processes, companies tend to use much more technologies that will support workers, that will help the workers so that they can be very free to take the decisions. While in large companies, the trend is using more structured information systems, real-time data to take the right decisions, but everything is focused on standardizing more in taking the maximum productivity aspect, the maximum contribution to productivity. So size of the company is also very important when we consider, besides the industry type that Giuliano mentioned. And another factor is the contextual factors, the culture in which the company is embedded, like how the level of educations of the workers, the openness of people, the culture to use new technologies, or if they are more conservative toward new technologies. All these are different aspects that will shape specifically the way each company will use digital technologies.
I think culture is definitely important, and I think the other points raised too, but there's also something I would consider, which is the internal company culture, which is essentially every company has a structure. So essentially within every company, there are certain pathways how things are realized. So certain people are legitimized to say this has to be done, and certain people do it. Whereas other people say that and nothing will be happen. So it's just a little bit like an organism, and obviously to work, there is somebody which says you have to do something, and then is somebody which essentially has to do that. And otherwise it doesn't really work. And accordingly are different pathways in order to realize it. And obviously everybody has a different stake in this whole system, because not everybody identifies 100% with this company. Or he does identify, which is the same. In each case, everybody plays a very specific role, and this role is his job. So it's nice little word, my job. And my job is my definition. And as soon as you introduce new technologies or you introduce a lean system, you have a problem that this job changes. And obviously, if this job changes, I have to change too, because in the end, a job change for a lot of people means my identity changes, my role changes. Maybe my whole identification of my life is based on my role in this company. And then obviously somehow one has to solve this tension, and then have to give back sense and meaning to people if one introduces this change. The same problem was with lean management. If lean would significantly change something, but every lean book tells you that the guy which has a crumbled workplace, you should not clean the workplace, but you should first convince a person that it is necessary to clean the workplace. So it's an essential element of lean to get this buy-in to a certain degree first. Whereas I don't really see that by digital technologies. So digital technologies just come like a sledgehammer somewhere from above. Normally they don't come from the button because they are too expensive. And then the whole system has to adopt to this new technology, and nobody explains why. The main explanation is, oh, we just need it because it's good. But there is no proof it's good. And then my whole life suddenly changes because of that. I mean, it's not only in companies like this, there are a lot of examples in real life too. So I think that definitely a very big issue is how to get with these personal feelings of different people which are in a company, how to make everybody more or less, I mean, you cannot make them happy, but you can reach something like a Pareto optimum so that everybody buys in, and then that is a way to resolve the tension. But otherwise, there will always be these tensions.
These are extremely interesting points. Thank you so much. So, given these potential issues, what should companies do to overcome these challenges successfully? What we mean are there specific investments or resources needed that companies should take into consideration?
Yeah, I will give some examples based on what we saw in our special issue, based on the papers and the findings that they brought in the special issues. First, when we consider that we have tensions between lean and Industry 4.0, between lean and digital technologies, first of all, what companies should do is identify such tensions, understand what are the tensions, and and understand especially that some tensions will be feasible to be solved, and other tensions will be paradoxical tensions that will exist, and that companies will need to learn how to deal with these existing tensions. So it's not about eliminating the tensions, but about learning how to coexist with these tensions. So two of the papers that we have in our special issues, they proposed first one of them about how to deal with dialectical tensions and how to solve these tensions through resolution mechanisms, and they bring some practical recommendations how companies can create resolution mechanisms. And another paper discusses the paradoxical tensions between lean and digital technologies, and presents ways of creating a dynamic unbalance between these tensions, and how to learn to embrace these tensions and learn from these tensions. And furthermore, some other papers of our special issue bring another perspective about lean and Industry 4.0, which is regarding the outcomes. Companies need to understand that this is not just a discussion about how to be more efficient and more productive. Two papers from our special issue, they bring a learning perspective about the integration of digital technologies and lean. And they stress that through the process of integrating these technologies with lean practices, companies can develop learning capabilities and can learn to learn. So there is also an innovation process involved in the integration between lean and Industry 4.0. Companies that understand that they will face the tensions, but that they can also learn from such tensions, and that they can learn through the implementation of both concepts. Such companies can become more innovative and can deal better with learning processes for improving the manufacturing activities. So I think that these are two main topics that we need to consider for the practice. First, identifying such tensions, and then understanding that we can get other outcomes besides the productivity issues, which is learning and becoming more innovative.
Yeah, I would like to add, especially to this learning and problem solving part, because apparently most companies forget that learning and problem solving takes time, which is not working time. So normally there's a subdivision between solving the problem and learning something. So Toyota had 3 levels of problem solving. The first one, to get things back on start. There was no learning, just get it run. And then in your free time, you could think about what was actually the problem. So you have to create these spaces, which can be called quality circle or something else. But you have to decide when people can learn and when people should not learn. So you have to introduce something like clear structures, but very important, you have to give workers time to learn. And obviously workers will not be happy to learn in their free time. So it should be part of the working time. And then obviously management is not too happy to let workers learn in their working time. And then they are very surprised if workers don't learn. So management just has to rethink, I think, in a certain degree, what is actually value added and what is not value added. And unfortunately for many managers, learning is not value added. Simply counts as non-value added time, so it's waste, so it should be reduced. I think that is definitely something which management can do. Another thing which is very associated to this learning is obviously competence building. Everybody which feels incompetent and is asked to execute a task obviously becomes nervous. That's the same for me. If somebody asks me to give a talk about some topic I don't know, I also get nervous. So everybody gets nervous if he has to solve a task which is outside his or her competence. So obviously, it's very important that companies first create the competence before they give workers tasks. For that, obviously, they first have to define the tasks and the associated competences, and then they have to create the competences and to match it. All of this is not very new. Actually, it's just lean management. So I think the biggest point is that maybe managers should go back to lean in order to learn how to appropriately implement digital technologies. Yeah, it's the same point. At a certain point, you're getting to questions of legitimization, which is just a question of leadership to a certain degree. So why should I follow what an algorithm said? I mean, there's just no logical thing. I mean, an algorithm still I can follow to a certain degree. But if we talk about artificial intelligence, not even the guy who writes the code knows what this artificial intelligence is doing. So why the heck should I follow what this artificial intelligence is saying? So it is then obviously a problem if I try to use this kind of algorithms to make decisions on people, because people need a reason and people need sense. So I think people follow if we explain them why we do things. And I think the biggest challenge is a lot of management does not explain why they do certain things. Why do we do this digital transformation? They don't give people time to actually learn the competences they need to do that. And I think these are points where management can contribute, that these tensions will be resolved. And then again, also with paradoxes, you have to talk and to jointly get to the point that you accept the paradox, because it's a paradox from the worker side and obviously it's a paradox from the management side. So both have to agree. And it's also a paradox for different workers. So you have to get all of them together, and then you can just say, okay, we accept this, that is like it is. And then you can overcome the paradoxes. I think that is also a common theme in the different papers we had in the special issue, because obviously talking is also a competence. Yeah. Yeah. So being able to reach consensus, it's a very big competence, which I think a lot of people are missing nowadays. So how can we create this competence of, okay, it's not what I want, but I take it?
So thank you. In connection with this, I think Alejandro already touched a little bit the topic regarding the benefit, but one thing that we are curious to discuss a little bit more is that traditionally, as you were saying, so lean has been associated with efficiency, cost, waste reduction. Instead, looking at the paper including the special issue and also your editorial, so it seems that you're going to push the idea that the integration of lean and technology seems to provide outcomes that go beyond that. You mentioned learning. There's also a theme regarding the social benefits for workers. So can you elaborate more on this? Like, what is your perspective?
Yeah, sure. I'll take that. I think, there's a lot of other benefits that go beyond efficiency, right? As I mentioned, quality is also usually associated with lean implementation. You can think about lead time. So companies like when you implement lean in healthcare, for example, you're looking at patient safety a lot more than you're looking at quality, right? So depending on what is the focus of the company wants to improve, then lean as a continuous improvement tools and techniques can help you and guide you to that direction, right? So with the digital technologies, are able to increase that speed of continuous improvement, or making them more target where actually the root cause is, either starting by making the information more on time, or the information that you actually need to be quicker to access, so you can solve problems quicker. So we'll make that wheel spin up the PDCA, or the Plan, Do, Check, Act, or what someone called the root cause analysis spin quicker and quicker. We'll go and direct you more and quicker to that improvement performance that you target, right? The other aspects, it's the AI helping you also to solve those problems in a level or a speed that you couldn't do if you're doing it in a human, let's say, speed, right, or capability, right? So there are all these different aspects of problem solving that you can use those digital technologies to help you achieve better results, efficiency, quality, lead time, flexibility, whatever the target of or the organization is.
Thanks so much. Given the benefits that we just discussed, we would like to focus more on the implications for workers and their day-to-day activities. Actually, you somewhat covered this when you were talking about legitimization in management, organizational culture, capabilities of the workers, and etc. But now, from a worker's perspective, what can we expect from the integration between Lean and Industry 4.0 in this area?
Yeah, first thing I think that we can expect and we are seeing in practice is there is a big impact on the need of new skills. Workers need to be trained or retrained, and we have in the market the brown fields and the green fields, which are the two different kind of workers that we need to deal with when we are considering this integration. For the brownfield workers, these are those workers that are already in the industry. They are from the, let's say, the old school. They are for a long time in the industry. They are working in the industry, and then now they are facing new technologies. In countries like my country, like Brazil, we have a important impact on the worker skills, because many of these workers, they are not well trained. They are not, they struggle to have access to education. Sometimes they don't have primary education, and suddenly they need to deal with new interfaces, with dashboards, with indicators, with statistics, and these kind of things. And this has a very big impact on the workers. So there's a big call to an institutional call and industrial policy programs that to face this problem, really this problem that we will face in the industry. In Brazil, for instance, which is my context, my practical context, there are professional institutions that are focused now to help companies in this transition with new trainings and small trainings for workers to help these workers, these brownfields, to be reskilled and to be able to face these new technologies. But we have also the green fields, which are the new workers that are coming to the industry. This is the young people. They maybe are more friendly. They're more used to interacting with digital technologies, but they don't have all the tradition that we have in structured manufacturing activities like Lean. So then we face another challenge, which is how to be attractive for the young people, how we can bring these young people to manufacturing activities, and how we can make them becoming interested in working in manufacturing, which is another important aspect that we deal with when we consider this integration. So this is my perspective, which is a macro perspective, and that sometimes a single company cannot solve it. We need to engage government, we need to engage in universities, professional training institutions, and so on, so that we can create an educational system that can embrace these two kind of workers that will be impacted by these new technologies.
Yeah, if I can add to that, I think the bigger impact is on the level of the team leaders and supervisors, and of course the engineering that goes into that, right? So the workers will be affected by that in a way that they'll have to collaborate with the technology. If you think like cobots or automated guided vehicles or something like that, they'll be part of their day-to-day. So they need to know how to interact with that. But of course, it will need to be designed and need to be adapted to their use. And who's going to do that is going to be, again, team leaders, supervisors, industrial engineer, and they're the ones that will have to change the technology, understand how to adapt that to the day-to-day of the organization and to the people that are working there. I think kind of following what Matthias was saying about, they accepting the technology and understanding why it is there and why it is helping and doing their job. So that communication between shop floor and other levels, that's the one that needs to be even better now if we want people to accept these new technologies.
I want to add here is that apparently also Germany has a very particular workforce. In Germany, we have something which are craftsmen, which are normally very good at handiwork. I wouldn't say they are so good at programming and stuff. Accordingly, to my knowledge, Industry 4.0 was not a very big success in Germany. And until now, we have an increasing number of people which get ill with psychological issues because it's just too much stress. In how far this stress is introduced by new technology is a different question, but it would be an interesting study to see. Techno stress is definitely an issue. As said, it's a question of missing competences. It's a question of, I'm a craftsman. I define myself as a craftsman because identification is just much higher. Because that is my job, that is my being. I'm a locksmith, I'm a carpenter, that is just what I am. And suddenly the whole thing changes. And until now, what I needed to do is just to build a wonderful chair. And now suddenly I have to code a machine. So the machine is building this chair. That is completely different. There is a huge difference between I'm building something with my hand and now I'm just using a keyboard and type in that something is built by a machine. And obviously this creates huge problems for people, which I think are in Germany much, much higher because we just don't have a workforce to supplement. So every worker which is getting ill is a huge problem for Germany because we just don't have young people to fill it up. Every person which was 50 says, I cannot do it anymore, and I'm not able to handle all of this new technology and all of this stuff, is a huge problem because we don't have somebody to take this job. Yeah. So I think on the one hand, obviously there is a problem for countries as Brazil because they need to train the people, but we also need to train the people in Germany to a certain degree. And these are normally older people. And there is the saying that normally what the small Hans learns, the older Hans never will learn in his life. Yeah, it's a German proverb, and I think it's true to a certain degree. So I think countries as Germany or high developed countries with a different age pyramid have much, much bigger problems with digitalization than countries which have a different pyramid, where actually the young people are building the workforce. Yeah, so I think that are definitely big issues. And so I think especially in Germany, points like psychological aspect, psychological well-being, and legitimization of decisions is a huge issue. Just thinking about data security, in Germany, we still pay almost everything with cash because we don't believe in credit cards. So it's very complicated to legitimize certain decisions suddenly. And I think companies definitely will struggle to that, with that. That will be, I think, the big issues for the workers. And if it's an issue for the workers, it's also an issue for management, because without workers, I would not know what management will be doing.
Thank you so much. So for the most part of the podcast, we discussed and you provided great insights regarding the practical relevance of this topic, which was great. But we also would like to look at this from more like a research perspective. We're all great scholars in the area. So we would like to provide some recommendation and insights sort of to our colleagues. So particularly, how do you think the research in the field of lean and its intersection with digital technology is evolving currently? And also based on the submission you receive for your special issue and your own project and research, what are the main topics and methodologies that you think are more promising to advance both theory and practice in this area?
I think a general problem is that we always get the same things. I mean, there is now a call for replication studies, which I think is definitely necessary also in the field of lean. But in the end, there are a lot of surveys always making more or less the same questions, coming with some conclusion at the end, which very often does not link to what is actually in the data. So I think what we need is really to go back to the roots, and it's just drawing a circle and observing the shop floor for a day or 2 or 3. Instead of grabbing a telephone and asking the manager what he thinks about worker engagement or something else. So I think in the end, research to be meaningful has simply become more lean, in the sense of talking to the parts, talking to the people on the shop floor, and then based on that, figuring out how things work. And I think there are tons of promising research topics. As said, there will now come the problem of legitimization, the problem of competence building. For example, training within industries is a huge tool for training people. Why would nobody use that, for example, to teach people how to code basic things or to do certain things? Yeah, in terms of competence building, one could analyze how competences then influence performance. There are huge issues of sense building, but all of this, obviously, I cannot do a survey and ask from the outside. I have to go to the company. I have to see how sense is built because I cannot measure sense. That is something I have to observe how people behave on the shop floor. So I think what we need is more in-depth case studies, doing field studies to getting some causal connections. And I think very promising apparently is intervention-based research. It's a new department, which was design science beforehand, where essentially it's all about actually intervening and seeing what is happening and then also learning out of failure. I think we definitely don't learn enough from failure. I think the interesting part of our special issue is that finally somebody raises something like tensions and say paradoxes. So it is all very nice, but normally what I would like to have is something like an intervention-based research where I implement something and then I see, oh, there's a tension, that is why it does not work. And then I have to create some kind of microcycles in order to resolve these tensions. And out of these microcycles, I learn new theory of how I have to change the original theory of the implementation. So I think there is definitely a huge room for doing this, but I'm also completely aware that it's very often very unrealistic, especially for young scholars, because it's just very time consuming. So doing this kind of case studies, we're talking about 2, 3, 4 years in order to do that, not even talking about the revision process afterwards. So it is a little bit of a problem we also have in academia. And if we criticize management that they should give people time to learn, then also in academia, we should maybe start to give students more time to learn and to do meaningful projects instead of evaluating everything on the number of papers essentially they do in the shortest possible time. Because then you cannot really do meaningful research, I would say.
Yeah, to add to what Matthias said, I think it is very important to take this close look at the phenomenon. I think now we are in the phase, and the same thing happened with lean. There was like decades where people was trying to prove that lean was good, right? And people just no one believed that could do beyond Toyota. And then the research was all saying, oh, we can do this here, we can do this here, we can do this, that. So that was the whole, for decades, that was what people were writing about. Then when that kind of got into a point where people say, oh, but there's also things that don't work, or there's also things that could be wrong, or there's also barriers, it's also difficult, it's not that easy. So I think we're still in a phase with lean and Industry 4.0, or Industry 4.0 as a whole, where we're only listening to the kind of the nice stories of, yeah, this thing can happen and this thing will revolutionize everything and this thing is good. In maybe 5-10 years from now, we're going to start saying things going more, yeah, there's a lot of things that we can't do, and there's bad things, and there are problems, and it goes into what Matthias was saying, which is very important, is yes, learning from the bad things that happen, really learning from the problems and getting to the root cause of the problems. That's the whole kind of message of lean anyway. All companies will spend a lot of money, and they're going to put a lot of money into the trash and waste because some of the things are not going to stick. Or maybe you're just jumping into a technology that's not ready now. You're trying to do it now, but it will take 10 years for that to actually work and to be beneficial. So we need to learn that. We need to learn which ones are the ones that are good now for us to use, which ones are not, and how do we deal with those technologies that are not, or how do we deal with the ones that are good? And because I listened, I heard that from many supply chain directors, and nowadays is just, I don't know where to start, right? I have every company that I talk to, every consultant company that I talk to, tried to sell me a digital technology that they developed. No one told me, we don't know which one should we take, because everybody's trying to sell the one that they have, right? So I think companies will take years to try to understand that, and that's going to be good in this kind of analysis that Matthias was saying. I observe companies, observe different perspectives, right? The perspective of the worker, the perspective of the manager, the perspective of the team leader, the perspective of maintenance, the perspective of IT, right? And kind of try and figure out what actually is happening in the company. That's my thought.
Yeah, adding to the previous comments, I think that there are, in terms of research perspective, I see two main streams that we need to address in the future. One is considering, because till now, most of the researchers we see are considering a set of lean practices, a set of digital technologies, and a combination of both. But we really need to consider lean systems with technology management systems. And this means considering really how the bundle of technologies, of practices of lean, they are integrated and work together, and how in this system, how this system coexists with a technology roadmap, technology maturity process of the company, and a combination and integration of different digital technologies. We are not seeing that in the literature. Or on the other perspective, we can consider the second stream, which is nowadays growing, I think, is considering specific digital technologies and conducting experiments with these technologies. For instance, taking an AI algorithm and running experiments with workers and see how the workers react, how the workers behave, and so on. This is another very promising perspective, because it helps us to understand better cause and effects, give us a view of causality, which is another very important need in the field. And of course, I fully agree with Matthias that conducting more long-term field projects, case studies, intervention-based research, design science research, that going really to the factory and seeing what is happening, it's very important as well.
Now, let me ask a question that our audience must be really curious about. So if you had to give one suggestion to researchers in this area, what this suggestion would be?
My first suggestion would be focusing more on practical issues, which means moving out from surveys and large data collection and going more to the practice, the field research. This is a promising field. We need more of this, and especially looking at the problems and what it's not really working well, so that we can have also, let's say, the dark side of the integration between lean and Industry 4.0. We need to see more about this, because we need to understand the limits of such integration. So I think this is a good opportunity for future research And I really would love to see more papers coming from this perspective, because we'll bring something new to the literature. We'll bring something that can refresh also the industry for all the lean literature.
Yeah, I think lean is a field that it's very practice based, right? It's everything we're doing was actually developed in the industry, and we as academics are trying to understand what the hell they develop, right? It's different than other fields that you do mathematical modeling. You're there in the office. You're trying to figure out how to put things in numbers, and you can do that without talking to people or having the knowledge about specific context, right? So lean is very practical based. You have to understand details, and you have to understand that it's very difficult to model something that have a million different things that can go wrong, and that what a shop floor is, right? So yeah, I agree with that very kind of close relationship with the phenomenon, getting close to that and trying to understand what actually is happening, how the decisions are making. And then I think there is also a lot of benefits on the fine tuning of how each technology can help or can interact with every practice of lean, right? Because we're talking very general. Lean, the practice of lean in everything you do in a company, right? Moving material, production planning, working, like the routines, everything that you do in a maintenance, everything that you do in a company, there's a lean practice or more than one associated with that. There is a bunch of technology, digital technologies that are coming, right? And they're there and that can be used. So there's thousands of different interactions that can happen. And I think kind of understanding the details there, it's going to be key for research and also for companies to move forward in this integration.
I will make two. I hope I can make two suggestions. Also, only one suggestion was actually requested. The first one is very short. Don't give up. Lean research can be very challenging. It is sometimes very soft. If you work with companies, you will encounter a lot of problems. Especially if you do long-term case studies or something. So data is much more amendable than real human beings. Don't give up. We definitely value this kind of research. And I think there are still also other reviewers which value it. So also if you get a rejection because somebody says it's not rigorous enough, if it's good research, I think you will find a good outlet. And otherwise, it's a shame for the outlet not to take it. The second one is definitely to think differently. I think the problem is this very old special issue in IJOPM, I think for 1989 or something, where was written what a paper should be more or less, and this very point which says, so what? So if at the end of the paper, I'm asking myself, so what, then something is wrong with the whole study. And I think here I also would like to take supervisors more under responsibility, because it's a supervisor job to tell the PhD student, hey, that has no so what, because that has been done 100 times. Obviously, a student is not supposed to know that. It's the same for young scholars. Young scholars are new in the field, and then we ending up with doing the same studies over and over again. We spend tons of energy to do exactly the same thing, which didn't work the last time. And then everybody's very disappointed if essentially it gets rejected somewhere because the reviewer just said, so what? I saw this at least 20 times before. I think that is a challenge where I think also better supervision is required, but I think it is very important if you want to have a high success rate, the best way is a good research question.
Thank you so much, these invaluable insights. That's all for today's episode of the International Journal of Operations and Production Management podcast. We hope you found this discussion on lean and its intersection with digital technologies informative and valuable. We would like to thank our guests, Alejandro, Matthias, and Giuliano, for sharing their insights and perspectives on this important topic. And a big thank you to you, our listeners, for tuning in. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe to our podcast on your favorite platform so you never miss an episode. If you have any feedback or suggestions for future episodes, we would love to hear from you.
Finally, if you'd like to learn more about the most recent research and trends in the field of operation and production management, with a particular emphasis on risk and resilience, be sure to visit the International Journal of Operation and Production Management website at www.emeraldgroupublishing.com/journal/IJOPM. There, you can read the most recent articles, submit your own research, and keep up with the latest development in the field. Thank you for listening again, and we hope to share more insights and perspective with you in the next episode.